Yo, all the mangaka must have been off something this week. What is this? Thank you to our $5 patron, Sinus Lancelot. And a big thank you to our $25 patron, the Mr. Greed. Before we have this review of chapter 174 of Jujutsu Kaisen, please do me a favor, leave your own notes on the chapter in the comment section down below, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come with the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below, and I'd appreciate any support you're willing to give. Now, let's get into it. What's up, guys? I got a pencil here, and here we are to review chapter 174 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as Sendai Colony 1. So, this is the, it was a cool transition, alright? I'll admit. Do I like the naming function? No, because I still think you're getting just out of naming the chapters entirely, which is why I cred My Hero Academia for at least switching it up after a little while. But now you seem to be on this, so I guess you're just going to keep getting these different colony names followed by whatever number they are. So I'm fine with it, because the chapter itself is heat. Let's hop right into it. So we open up, and we get to see the other two major threats are analyzing the loss of Daruv's Shikigami. Essentially, they've seen entirely that the strongest, or at least one of them, the guy who was controlling a majority of their respective colony through, his gigantic Shikigami roaming the entire territory, they're going away now, meaning that Daruv is dead, essentially, because there's no way he would just dispel them randomly like that on their own. And of course, one of them goes on to, hold on, what are their names? let me actually learn their names real quick. Let me see. So Tatako and Ryu are currently observing the situation, right? And of course, considering how monumental a thing this is, considering their domain has essentially been stagnant for a while because of how powerful all four of them were, including the cursed spirit, who isn't reacting right now, or at least so far what we've seen. The thing was, they were in a deadlock, essentially. So one of them randomly disappearing like this is obviously a big deal. So Ryu is like, yo, show me the player who just earned points within the last minute inside the Sendai colony, which is a very specific response. It really makes me wonder, how good are these people at using Kogane? And, obviously pretty darn good if they're doing, because both of them come to this conclusion, right? Because not only does Ryu see that it's Okotsu, it's also Takako who notices that, so this is the guy that's been racking up points recently, and now that Shikigami's gone, meaning I have more domain to control, but at the same time, if essentially what they're both noticing, especially Ryu, is I got this close without the roof having any reaction, and that means on its own, just because of how much of a threat I am to the roof relatively, that this Okotsu dude was strong enough to keep the roof occupied. And once again, I love Jujutsu Kaisen does this pretty often, which makes me really enjoy it just because of how rare it is in other series. Our MCs are monsters, right? In terms of just sheer insanity, we got it when Itadori slammed that dude through a building with sheer physical strength. We got when Higuruma reacted to Itadori's just raw base strength. We got it when Megami was just shown with his 10 shadows technique and overwhelming Reggie. But once again, we're seeing from the perspective of Takako and Ryu that this random dude came out of nowhere and upset the balance that they couldn't shift for who knows how long. So he just seems horrifying. Well, not necessarily. They don't seem scared, but they seem intrigued. But obviously, that intrigue can turn to fear very quickly if it gets turned on them. And I love that. The fact that these characters, Yuta, Okotsu especially, are considered monsters in the world because of their own various unique traits and special abilities and stuff like that. It's cool stuff like that makes me really appreciate the way that Jujutsu Kaisen loves to flip perspective, show us multiple angles and stuff like that. However, what's the most interesting part about all of this is that thanks to Daruf being dead and his Shikigami notably being gone, neither Ryu or Takako are actually interested in attacking. They just know that Kurorushi, that's how you say it, Kurorushi will make its move. And and once again, it's a little unique perspective changes, because Ryu finds this interesting, because he's like, oh, things are getting spicy up in here, we ain't playing no more. Meanwhile, Takako, who should have arguably the more powerful technique, she's literally just floating around in the sky. Her curse technique apparently allows her to control the sky itself. So I wonder if she's just fodder or something like that, because she says that this is the worst. Meanwhile, Ryu's like, I'm kind of interested. Where could this go? And of course, we see the man himself. And obviously, despite how savage Yuta looked walking out, blood splattering across his face as he sliced the man in half, we just get a little calling from a little container that's like, Mr. Okotsu, and a whole bunch of civilians come out, and he's like, oh yeah, you can come out now. We're good. We're gonna head for the north edge of the barrier. And notably, we get to see his kind side too, because he sees a mother and daughter that are like, they're tired essentially. She's carrying a baby on her back, and her younger child wants to be picked up and taken around. And Okotsu's like, come on, you know what? Never mind. We'll be fine here. Let's take a break. This is a territory from one of the most powerful sorcerers here. We'll be fine to rest here for a while. No one's going to come along. But the most interesting thing that this implies to me, right, is that I thought Kenjaku may have just been a nice person and gotten a bunch of civilians out, but I guess I didn't think hard enough there. Remember all the way back when Kenjaku went to that one girl's house and that one dude's house and essentially guided them out of the colony before the games got underway. I thought that was just an act of kindness for Kenjaku for everybody, but I didn't realize he only did that because he cared about Ita. This revelation makes me realize so many more things, right? I think this chapter does a good job of like making me open my eyes to the limits, the strengths, the growth of the Culling game, like all that. It's made the game way more interesting for me now, because notably, he only did that. Kenjaku only removed those two because they had a friendship with Itadori. Everyone else at Itadori's high school is likely dead. Like, not gonna lie, every other person he went to high school with, who was also just a regular civilian, which should be most of them, is now dead. And that means Kenjaku really expected people to rack up points by just slaughtering regular humans. And that's expected. I can't even say it's kind of crazy. Like, it's crazy for me because morals. Like, I don't believe in the slaughter of people or the slaughter of innocent people. That's not my thing. So, but it's insane to think that Kenjaku's care for Itadori is so genuine that he would go out of his way. Like, this proves that this wasn't just like an automatic effect of the Culling game. Kenjaku himself, after he set up the barrier, had to go in and then guide them out. And now I think about it. Hold on, let me see something. All right, now I'm just confused. All right, so I went back to chapter 160, known as Jujutsu Kaisen number 160. Okay, I'm sorry. But the thing is, everyone... I thought he had just let the girl... Because notably, this is the Sendai colony. This is where Itadori went to school and stuff like that. Or at least in the general vicinity where his friends lived. But the thing was... Apparently, Kenjaku offered everyone the choice, or at least everyone who was there the choice to stay in the barrier or leave. So why are these people here? Are all these people, did they decide to be killers? Like, this mother and child, like, now I'm confused. Is that just a mistake? Was that something, was that a lie? Because notably, the friend that Itadori's friend mentions or sees is like, oh yeah, we all saw this dude with long hair and a kensai or whatever. And if they all had the option to leave, what the heck? But notably, that is cool that the Shikigami you see in chapter 160 is the Shikigami that Megami inadvertently just destroyed by defeating the roof. That's cool. I like that notion. But I'm kind of confused now. Why are there any innocents in this barrier? Because they were supposedly... Was it because they were only asleep? Like, if you happen... That'd be sad, but imagine if you just happen to be a night owl the one night that Kenjaku decides to wreck the barrier, and he's like, sorry. Only the realm between sleep and death is a curse, so can't bring you out. You were up. You gotta die now. Like, is that it? Because that seems weird. Now there shouldn't be civilians. But maybe not. Maybe Kenjaku was only nice to some people. I guess maybe anyone who high-fived Itadori got a way out. Because it doesn't make sense for only some people, some innocent civilians, to not have a way out. Unless it's sleep dependent. That's such a weird thing now. Because I thought that was a neat thing that Akutame did to give more credence to the whole Itadori's friendship and the possible relationship between Kenjaku and Itadori. But now it's like, I don't know. I guess these people just weren't asleep at that time. But of course, back to the modern plot. We see that Okotsu senses something, right? Well, no, not really, actually. Well, no, he does sense something before they notice it, but he senses cursed energy, likely, and then all these civilians are like, yo, wait a minute, what's that sound? And Okotsu's instantly like, yo, run into the stadium right this instant, right now. And notably, I love how Okotsu's immediate response is to protect these people, right? Like, at the end of all things, while Okotsu is a warrior amongst warriors, he still is a savior of people. Like, he was going to be our MC for a reason. And of course, he sees people running. Oh my. He sees people running from this large crowd of insects. And I love how there are two people running, right? But one's already in the swarm. So Kotsu's like, I can only save one. I'm going to save him. So he lunges in as the dude cries for help. And Okotsu, once again, it's the slight superhumanness that I love in Jujutsu Kaisen. Because Okotsu literally, what looks like a standing leap. Like, he didn't have any run up. He didn't have any preparation. He literally just standing leaped so hard that he literally grabbed the guy, went past him, and tried to pull him out. But the cockroaches, or these bugs, obviously the cockroaches. You read the chapter. Cockroaches came out and they got the guy up to his legs, and of course they infested his entire body. And Yuta himself has to let go of the guy who explodes with blood and cockroaches as they latch onto Yuta. And Yuta's like, that's not my vibe. And like, I'm not sure if that's supposed to be cockroaches that are flying to him or if that's blood, right? Because he blocks it with his sword. And notably, he questions, are these cockroaches even real? Each one of them has cursed energy and they're reinforced. A single one is a problem, but a swarm poses a threat. So that's the interesting thing though, because this implies that it's more like Hanami's thing, right? Because you remember, Hanami's plants were never actually plants. Plants do not produce cursed energy, and thusly they cannot be manipulated by cursed energy. What Hanami did was he drained the life out of plants and converted it into cursed energy and created cursed energy constructs that looked like and sometimes had the properties of plants. So I wonder if what Kurorushi, I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember that name until I say it a million times. But yeah, it seems like a very interesting mix, because what implies here is that it's just like those plants, right? Like, they aren't actual cockroaches. They're just mimicking the effects of cockroaches and taking the form while being composed of cursed energy. But something later on in the chapter implies the opposite. So I don't really know. But of course, the swarm is like, well, we obviously cannot deal with this dude. Might as well go for the easier prey. And it just leaves Yuta alone and proceeds to pour towards all the civilians. And as they're trying to escape, Rika pops out. And notably, there's been a lot of discussion ever since Yuta popped back up on whether or not this is the same Rika from Volume 0 and or just the leftover manifestations of the Shikigami that took form, or like essentially a husk that Yuta can now control that is like a conduit for his immeasurable cursed energy. And I'm definitely going towards the latter. I do believe Rika, as in the crazy, childish, manic cursed spirit, is gone. I think this is just a Shikigami that happens to have all the properties of Rika, minus the consciousness. Mainly because Rika, it listened to Okotsu in Volume 0, but notably it's not doing anything crazy without being told. Like, the only time it ever popped out without being told is when Yuta threatened Okotsu. Yuta threatened Okotsu. I wonder how he would. Itadori almost landed a hit on Okotsu that would have been fatal, and subconsciously, I assume, Okotsu summoned it, probably just out of habit, and thusly it stopped him. But notably, Rika when he was getting attacked by the cockroaches, it didn't come out of nowhere and like grab him and take him away. So I think Yuta does just have control over the husk of Rika at this point. And notably, Rika doesn't play no games, because when Yuta says, Rita, knock it down, Rita just slams its fist on top of the stadium wall, and it has so much force that the cockroaches that are under the building instantly get crushed and die, and then the rest of the cockroaches, seeing that, like, it must have been created a solid lock too, because it's not like the cockroaches go through any cracks or filters, but they instantly just turn back around and they're like, well, time to go for the other living human being. And that was a drastic mistake. Because Yuta, with a quick draw of his blade, proceeds to just annihilate them in a blast of curse energy. And notably, did Yuta ever do that? I can't remember him doing that in Volume 0. Like, he managed, like, Rika, not Rita. I'm not talking about an ice cream stand. Like, Rika managed to fire off a big old cursed energy cannon before, but I don't think Yuta ever like reeled back and fired up. Maybe he did in the Itadori fight, I'm just not remembering it properly. But yeah, he just fires off an entire torrent of cursed energy that absolutely vaporizes all the cockroaches. So pretty darn insane. And of course, both Takoko and Ryu, who are watching, are kind of blown away, because as Yuta stands there, blade up, flexing on him, we see now Ryu, the person with the highest curse energy output out of the entire group, is like, his output isn't actually all that. What's surprising is his overall curse energy. So what that means is that Ryu is at least confident in the fact that if he were to get into a quote-unquote beam struggle with Okotsu, he would like have more raw power, but he would run out of curse energy quicker. Because notably, while Ryu has high curse energy output, it's more likely like a burst, like a high energy flash of cursed energy. Meanwhile, it would probably like empty his reserves. Meanwhile, Yuta could probably hold that blast that he did against the cockroaches forever, and if not forever, a very long time. And who knows, Yuta probably was not going all out there. He's not even scuffed, so he very easily could create a much larger blast of curse energy and then supplement that blast with as much energy as it needs, just because of his insane amounts of curse energy. And of course, we see that Talcoco gives us a more accurate measurement, well, maybe not more accurate, but a more scary measurement of Yuta's curse energy by saying it's bottomless. And she's confused on the nature of Rika, like we all are. And I don't think we're gonna get I don't think we're ever gonna get an explanation unless someone specifically asks him about it. Like, I don't think anyone has it in their heart to be like, hey, Yuta, that big monster thing that follows you around, what'd it do though? I don't think anyone's ever gonna ask him that. So someone, please do. I'd greatly appreciate it. But regardless, they're just blown away because obviously, with how powerful it is, it makes sense that Daruv, especially without his Shikigami guarding him, would die. And possibly even Daruv, if he was strong on his own, which we don't know. And I'm not going to lie, going on a tangent a little bit, I really wish we could have gotten like a little bit of build up to this colony, especially since it seemed more organized than the last one. Like, Tokyo Colony seemed very... It feels like it was in its baby stages of forming, right? Like no one was solidly a king. No one really had territories. People were just going around killing each other. Like, it was a culling game. Like, no one had any direct lead. So it makes sense to just drop our two protagonists in there and we're immediately following them. Because essentially that would be the situation anywhere. But I feel like it would have been kind of cool to enter this new colony with like a mystery sort of behind it. Like, we're not sure who's in it. Because normally we have three options of main characters who went into colonies on their own, and that would be Panda, Hakari, and Yuta. So we could have just been building a narrative, maybe not for too long, maybe like a chapter or two, like we followed Daruv. Like, for half a chapter we follow Daruv, half a chapter we follow Talcoco, half a chapter we follow Ryu, and then for the final half of the chapter we follow Kurorushi, or at least Kurorushi fighting off against one of the Shikigami and then going into hibernation. Like, we could build up this narrative, build up this world, and then at random you could still have the same scene. The roof dies, but like the figure is concealed, so you can't exactly tell who it is. Of course, it could be by a blade, so you can figure, oh, it's a Kotsu, because none of our main characters wield blades. And then you can see this crumbling of the system more accurately, rather than just being told, oh, there's a four-way deadlock, and also, oh, there are territories, stuff like that. Like, this is very much tell, don't show, but I get it narrative pacing wise. Obviously, Gege is on like a certain path in the way he wants to tell the narrative, so I can see why he didn't go out of his way to flesh it out, even if I would have appreciated it just because, I like my world building. Obviously, it's something I tend to enjoy, so I wouldn't mind more time being taken, but I get why more time wasn't taken. But notably, I love how while we see this perspective of the cockroaches being destroyed and Ryu and Talcoco watching over, someone else is already there to greet them. And it's noted by Talcoco that Kurorushi is there. And Yuta instantly asks us, Kogane, like, hey, yo, is that thing a player? And like, I don't even blame him for asking that, right? Because that thing looks like, what goes through people's head? Gege, what were you on? I just want to know. Like, he didn't look this bad last chapter. Like, when he was mostly shadowed in darkness, it didn't look as off-putting as he does now. And I suppose that's supposed to be the point, right? Like, he's a cockroach curse. He obviously isn't anything that's meant to be visually appealing, but don't make me want to hurl every time I see him. And notably, I love how Kogane just pops up so cheerfully. It's like, yes, and its name is Kurorushi. And Kurorushi. I'll get it right. Give me time. I'll get it right. But notably, we get to learn a little bit about it. And it seems like Daruv, Lucky... I'm just going to call him Daruv. Daruv would have been a particularly nasty opponent for Kurorushi, so the cockroach decided to enter a dormant state. So apparently, Daruv was just like a hard counter. Like, I'm assuming Daruv was essentially the king of this territory, probably the strongest opponent, considering he had most domain. Or see, that's the thing, without knowing much, I was only told that there was a four-way deadlock. But apparently, it wouldn't have even been a matchup. So if Daruv had gone after Kurorushi, it would have been over. Because apparently it would have been a bad matchup. And I guess that's because the the curse itself could have been devoured by the Shikigami that the Daruv had itself out. So I don't know. I really would like to see the Daruv fight, but see, that's me getting greedy. That's me getting greedy. So I'm gonna stop that. But we learn a bit more about Kurorushi, and apparently it has an endless appetite, and eating stimulates its parthenogenesis. And of course, since it had just woken up, since it finally sensed those Shikigami disappearing, it's been starving because the area's been in a deadlock for a while. And now that its main food source was cut off because of Yuta's attempts to defend the people, it now wanted to devour Yuta. Big mistake. I wonder. Let me see what the chapter says. Resources are, no, that cuts into an entirely different part of the chapter. So focusing on this, I wonder how sentient this cursed spirit is, right? Like, what in its instincts decided that Daruv was big enough of a threat that I was like, forget it, I'm gonna take a nap and leave. But the thing that defeated Daruv, maybe matchup specificity, right? Like, apparently the matchup with Daruv would have been bad, likely due to something with Daruv's technique and the Shikigami he had. So maybe that's it. Meanwhile, Okotsu seems like less of a threat because while his cursed energy is bottomless, who knows? Maybe he himself isn't. But then again, like, at least according to what Itadori says, even him, like, no offense to Itadori, he's a very good sorcerer, but someone of his level can just sense that Yuta just has this presence about him. Not only does he feel as powerful as Gojo, just more ominous, but on top of that, he has bottomless cursed energy that he uses to reinforce his entire body in spades. Like, as a creature governed by instinct, unless he has something special about him, I wouldn't run up against Okotsu, like, in any scenario. Like, say I'm a sorcerer in the Culling game, and I sense something like Okotsu in my general vicinity, me as a consciously thinking human being would be like, stay away from that thing. I would legit suppress myself and hide until it left, because Okotsu would just be this bottomless, like, he would literally be a black hole. Like, imagine, I'm not exactly sure how to describe it, because, like, I'm not sure, as humans we can't sense anything, but, like, I'm assuming what Okotsu is to senses of a sorcerer would be like looking at the sun. Like, there's just this bright, endless light before you. Like, you wouldn't want to approach that, would you? Like, you don't want to look at the sun, just like you would not want to approach Yuta. But apparently Kurorushi is, like, so confident in itself that it's ready to pull up. Of course, probably it's been sleeping too long, it's starving, so maybe those instincts are overriding the like, self-preservation instincts. But geez, it's throwing itself up against a wall that it probably does not want to try to climb. But now we cut over to Yuta's perspective, and he brings up interesting things about the Culling game itself, and he's like, okay, leveling with myself real quick. Resources are finite, so in addition to the rules allowing passage in and out of the colony, will need to obviously be necessary at some point, or else we're all going to die. So that's one thing. But on top of that, players like Daruv and Kurorushi are going to be attacking people indiscriminately, and they must not be allowed to leave the barrier, so we're going to have to make a rule to stop that. And there are more players like them in the colonies as well, and we can't allow any people to leave until they're eliminated, because if they just get out into the world, they're going to cause more havoc. So communication between colonies is also necessary. Like, I love how Yuta's thinking. That's why I love JJK, all right? Like, one of my favorite things about it is how your characters within the manga are just always, even Itadori thinks. He thinks in a more combat sense, but still, like, Megumi, Reggie, Yuta, everyone think. I'm excited to see how Akari thinks, and I'm excited to see Panda in a more combat scenario, because he thinks good too. But the way Okotsu is, like, as he's approaching, like, notably, this is kind of entirely disconnected from the scenario that he's currently in, right? Like, he's staring down a cursed spirit that seems to be pretty powerful in of itself, but it's all relevant to him because he's still thinking about what he has to do in order to succeed in this long-term fight. And in this long-term fight, he's realizing the rules are going to have to be made, the points that he's going to need, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, Yuta, you're big risking what you need right now, because, well, but I love it because he has no other options here, right? Because the first thing he needs, we know Yuta's at 35 points right now. So essentially, we know he's not going to kill any innocent civilians. So that takes out an entire point reservoir for him that way. But if he's at 35 points right now, he's going to need to run into, I believe, 13 sorcerers. 13 sorcerers to get 100 points to get one of his rules. And unfortunately, I mean, it's entirely possible. There couldn't really be 13 sorcerers just lying around, because while we have our 3 dominant ones, or had our 4 dominant ones, it's entirely possible that there are more. And obviously, I feel like I think you get points for killing curses, but I'm not sure how many curses there are. There may just be Kurorushi. So if you don't run into 13 more people, what are you gonna do about points? And even if you get that first rule, say you run out, like, you have to set up that move. Oh, but I feel like that may be, I think the best thing that Yuta should optimize for in this scenario, first and foremost, is getting the ability to transfer between barriers. Like, simply open up corridors between them. You can't leave those corridors just yet, but you can move between them so you can optimize point sharing. Because while Yuta alone may not be able to gather that 400 points like he wants to, with the help of the others, he could very definitely. And I think he, well, no, he and Megami don't have enough just yet, but if they kill a couple more, that lowers the amount of players they need to get rid of in order to get to that first 100 points. So all they need to do is, well, they can't communicate right. Oh, that's so cool. I love how the Culling game is set up. It really is like every game is its own server, and there are limitations because you don't have party chat. Because you don't have party chat, you can't optimize your point use as well. Like, there's so many things. Honestly, I wonder if the points giving rule was important to establish. I'm glad they find that. But obviously, a big person that's going to need to step up is whoever runs into Hajime, the other player with 100 points. They need to find them, and they need to find them quickly so they can optimize their point spending. Because we see that Okotsu is essentially dedicated to the idea that, okay, Shibuya has drained everybody's spirits. Physically and emotionally, everyone's reached their limit, and it's not healthy for them. And obviously, Sensei's own mind is going to be just shattered after being alone for however long it is within that prison. And I definitely do not want you to kill your best friend a second time. And that's so that makes you know, right, that Yuta realizes that he failed. Like, I'm not sure if Gojo told him, I'm not sure if he sensed it, I'm not sure if he found out. Somehow, Yuta knows that he, despite his giant curse energy cannon, failed to kill Geto properly, and thusly the entire situation sort of falls on Okotsu and Gojo, because Okotsu had a chance to finish them all permanently to the point where, what's his name? Not Geto. What's his name? Kenjaku. I'm sorry, I don't know why I blanked on Kenjaku's name. Essentially, if Yuta had actually vaporized Geto's body, Kenjaku wouldn't have a new vessel, and this whole scenario wouldn't be happening. And obviously, Gojo's going to be under insane mental stress, and you don't want the craziest going crazy, or the strongest going crazy. So Yuta has to step up as the second strongest to kill Kenjaku and by himself attain those 400 points so no one else has to struggle. And I love the determination, and I love how he just locks into his blade stance and is ready to do it. And of course, seeing a blade pop up, Kurorushi, forget it. The ugly curse draws out Festering Life Sword. The Festering Life Sword is an enchanted blade that mixes life and death. So it'd be breaking life and death's ankles. Come on, I'll be snapping them up. However, super good chapter. Like, I admit, there are some things I wish we could have gotten to see more of. However, I'm fine with what we have now, because what we have now sets up a very interesting narrative. Where we're going to go from here, I don't know. I guess we're going to be following this battle. Are the other two superpowers going to interfere? Are they going to capitalize on their chance? I feel like this would be the best time to interfere. Like, literally, I hate to say it, if I'm Ryu in this scenario, I know things just got interesting, but the moment Yuta is focusing on battle, the moment those two are too close together, Kurorushi and Yuta, I'm blasting them full power. I'm launching an entire blast of curse energy at them, my best, so I can at least damage them, weaken them a bit. But then at the same time, Talcoco's there to worry about. So much good stuff in this chapter. From the setup to the reveals to stuff like that to questions being raised, all that, super, super good. I love the chapter, solid 10 out of 10 for me, but that was all my thoughts. Please tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, trying to remind you, and I do have a Patreon down below, and make sure you hit that little notification bell. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.